Hey friends, we're back with another book review. In this video, we are talking about Stealing from God by Dr. Frank Turek. Let's jump in. I'm a big fan of Frank Turek. He was the first apologist I was exposed to as a teenager. I've had the pleasure of having him on the podcast for a conversation. I like the way that he's very conversational, interactive. I have done a book review on his book, I Don't Have Enough Faith to Be an Atheist, and this is really more of an argument for the Christian worldview from the bottom up. And that's an excellent book. I definitely want to recommend you go check that out. But this book takes a different turn. And this one's even more conversational, I think. Because rather than taking someone through these points that demonstrate that Christianity is true and trustworthy and you should place your faith in Jesus Christ, this book is actually going to be helping interact with people from different worldviews, particularly the atheist worldview. In Stealing from God, Why Atheists Need God to Make Their Case, Frank Turek argues that many of the main arguments used by atheists to argue against the theistic worldview, to argue against God, actually depend on God to exist for those arguments to be sound and to make any sense. And so that's the main point that he's making in the book. And that's why I find this book to be so conversational, because it's true. And he makes a great point that whenever you hear these arguments, you say, hold on, let's back it up. And you'll hear him do this in his debates or the conversations he has quite often. He's like, well, you're arguing for this, but where does that come from in an atheistic worldview? Do you even have that in an atheistic worldview? We both agree that it exists, but I think that can only exist in a world with God. And we'll get into some specific examples. This book is 229 pages long with 8 chapters. So that's about an average of 28 pages per chapter. And in those chapters, he goes over the acronym CRIMES. And each one of those letters stands for a different argument used by atheists, but that actually can only exist in a theistic worldview. The first being causality. They're often arguing just based on science and causality, but causality really only exists if God exists. What sets this whole thing in motion? We have to believe that there's a cause for the universe. Otherwise, you can't hold to the law of causality. Similarly, he argues for reason. Reason is a metaphysical entity. It's not something that's just made from neurons firing in your head. It has to be something that exists independently of our brains. Otherwise, it couldn't be trustworthy. As such, that depends on God or a spiritual realm to exist. Third, he argues for information and intentionality. This is going to be more in the intelligent design arena, where it's talking about the information and intentionality that we find in DNA and in body plans. To recognize these mechanisms and this engineering, we need to see that there is an engineer, an intelligent designer behind it. Fourth, morality. We hear this one all the time. Everyone's always arguing about morality, that's wrong. Your God shouldn't have done this. That was evil. But hold on. Where do you get evil in an atheistic worldview? Is anything really wrong, or is that just your preference? You'll hear Frank Turek say that one all the time. Next, evil itself. Can evil exist in an atheistic worldview? Was it really evil what the Germans, the Nazis, did to the Jews? Or was it just a matter of preference? No, we believe that evil actually exists. But in order for evil to exist, good must exist, because evil is a privation of good. In order for good to exist, there must be a standard by which it exists, which is God. You can't get a standard of good outside of humanity in an atheistic worldview. And lastly, science itself. He says science depends upon metaphysical reality. You can't do science without God, because you need to trust your brain. You need to trust that things are actually consistent and we can trust our observations. You only get that if a metaphysical realm exists, not just molecules in motion reacting to different things, because then we ourselves couldn't be actually processing what we're engaging. We're just reacting. We're not doing science at all. And then lastly, he closes the book by going through a 4-point case for what he calls mere Christianity, and then a conclusion. So guys, it's a great book. It's an entertaining read, but it also opens your mind, realizing that there's a lot of patterns in the arguments that you'll hear from atheists, especially as you get more familiar. You'll see that there really aren't that many different problems they have with Christianity. You'll start hearing the same ones over and over again. even if you've just been watching Frank Turek's videos long enough, you'll see it's really just the same stuff that comes out. And a lot of it pertains to these 6 points. So this book is going to be really helpful for you in noticing those patterns, but also in having friendly conversations with your atheist friends and family, realizing that the arguments they're making actually depend upon a theistic worldview and can't exist or be true in an atheistic worldview. So I want to highly recommend this book. I'm going to judge it on 2 things, the readability and the usability. As far as the readability goes, like I said, 229 pages, 8 chapters, each roughly 28 pages long. That's a little longer than what I like. You guys know I have a short attention span. I like 8 to 12 pages. That way I could read more than one chapter in a sitting if I wanted to. I really don't like having to pause in the middle of a chapter. So these chapters are really kind of long. Even though the inside is really appealing, the text isn't huge. There are a couple of pictures and graphics on the inside. It really is longer than what I like. So I'm going to give it a 3 out of 5 just because it's almost 3 times the length of the chapters I like to read. But that being said, it's not very dense. Frank does a great job, even though it's academic and very helpful and informative. It's also very conversational in that he shares lots of stories and encounters that he's had to help further his points. So I want to get into usability. I'm going to give it a 5 out of 5 on usability, just because at the very least, it's going to help you in these kinds of conversations where you're realizing these patterns and these arguments often made by atheists, and you can stop them in their tracks and say, hold on, let's back up. This thing you're arguing, can that actually exist in an atheist worldview? Or is what you're arguing and what we both believe in actually only possible in a theistic worldview? Because you'll find that that's the case many of the times. But even outside of that immediate application of this book, it's going to help you with critical thinking to start thinking more carefully about the claims that we make and the assumptions that are behind those claims. That's going to help you with your own beliefs to be more consistent. And it's also going to help you when you're answering and responding to the claims of other people. So guys, that is a total of 8 out of 10 for this book. I highly recommend it. Like I said, it's a little bit shorter than I Don't Have Enough Faith to Be an Atheist. It might even be a little more applicable as you're having conversations with your secular friends and family. So I'm going to leave a link in the description below so you can go get a copy if you haven't already. If you have read it, then please go ahead and leave a comment letting me know what you thought, what your favorite chapter was, your favorite argument that stood out from the book, and I look forward to seeing you guys next time for another book review. God bless.